there, viewers, and welcome back to Snot. Your favorite sports presenter, Henry Snotson, here once again to bring you the latest info from the Snot League pitches. We're inching closer to the end of the group stage, and you know what that means. Big emotions, high stakes, and some serious blood on the pitch. So buckle up, because episode 6 of Telesnot is going to be a wild ride as the teams fight tooth and nail for their spot in the playoffs. The players in Group B continue to amaze us with the speed at which they're playing their matches. We've barely kicked off round 6, and they're already done and gearing up for round 7. Keep up the pace, folks. Let's dive into what's been going on. Let's start with Kamikazen, who steamrolled the halflings from Princes of Doom like a runaway freight train. The massacre dealt by the warriors from Nippon was so brutal that by the end, only one halfling was left standing. But the match didn't start out so bleak for our pint-sized crime lovers. After a successful attack, they actually managed to steal the ball from their opponents. But Samurai Zappa quickly got back on his feet, and with one precise strike, sliced the thief in half. Unfortunately, the blood-soaked ball was too slippery for him to hold on to. The halflings paid dearly in the ensuing battle for the ball, losing several players, while their minotaurs and chaos spawns fell victim to scourge. The second half saw Princes of Doom fielding just 6 players against Kamikazen's 11, which could only mean more tragedy on the field. In a desperate attempt to limit the damage, Kid Borak tried to punt the ball as far as possible, but it landed right at the feet of the Samurais. With the scoreboard already reading 0-2, the halflings switched tactics to run! But even with that, the Samurais hunted them down, sealing the match with yet another touchdown. Ouch! The Century Centaurs fell victim to FC Avalorna, and it looks like the new tactic of blocking the players' access to social media during the match is working wonders. To make matters worse, those sneaky elves demanded to play the game while many of their opponents were still on medical leave. This resulted in a record payout from the Equalization Fund, allowing Coach Rahel to bring in Morg and Thorg. However, the famous star player didn't live up to the hype, sparking a wave of rumors about a supposed romance with Lionella Mercier, an affinity for elves, and even a hefty bribe from the Elven team. A lot of reporters point out his last action when he quite strangely fell on the ground during rushing towards Lionella, bashed his head and loose consciousness. Whether the elves resorted to bribery, a scandalous romance, or both, the match itself was horribly one-sided. It might also be thanks to the Handmaiden's new tactic, the diving tackle, which left the poor Ungors no chance of escaping the elves. Who thinks about escaping from elves anyway? The only solution is to just beat them. But the 3-0 scoreline for FC Avalorna makes it clear that something went terribly wrong with the Centaurs and Morg's beating strategy. It looks like the Elven women have really picked up steam, but they still have one final showdown against their eternal rivals, the Dwarves of Black Potatoes. Ah, those dwarves from PLOBZ, once again, they didn't show up for their match. What can you do? Well, the circus performers from Electric Boogaloo Carnival didn't let that stop them from putting on a show for the fans. They treated everyone to a display of tricks in their own unique disease-ridden, filth-covered style. I feel pity for cleaning crew that have to clean the stadium after that. Oh well, let's move on. What a showdown we had between Rockstars and Black Potatoes. A true clash at the top, worthy of the fight for first place in the group. The entire first half was one massive brawl for possession of the ball. But in the chaos, no player could hold on to it for long. There were casualties too. Janice Joplin, the catcher for the Lustria team, was knocked unconscious, while Mia Garman from the Dwarf team was ejected for a brutal foul, one that couldn't be hidden from the referee's watchful eye. Mia didn't sit alone on the bench for long, though. During halftime, Miranda Cord got into an argument with the referee and was also ejected as punishment. Of course, the Dwarves quickly noted this sexist exclusion in their grudge books. But to avoid ending up in their little diaries ourselves, we won't ask questions like, why was a dwarf woman on the field? Obviously, we knew there was a woman on the team from the very beginning. Back to the match. Despite being down 2 players, the Dwarves somehow managed to break into the Temple Guard's cage and wrest control of the ball. But not for long. Reinforcements arrived quickly, and to add insult to injury, a Saurus once again grabbed the ball with his massive claws and scored a touchdown for the Rock Stars. The dwarves, outraged by this turn of events, lost focus during the restart, allowing the Relic Slan to take up very favorable positions on their half. Instead of thinking about equalizing, the bearded ones had to fight just to keep the score at 0-1, which they somehow managed to do. And although they ultimately lost, the Black Potatoes have certainly earned their place as the team that gave our Group B favorites the most trouble. Breaking news! Joseph Moranion is under investigation for heresy! Reports of Bill Ballyballer's opponents mysteriously getting injured upon arrival in Estalia caught the attention of the Witch Hunters Order. A special operation lasting 6 weeks saw the Witch Hunters disguising themselves as a Blood Bowl team to gather information on any heretical activity in the region. But after all that time spent in Bill Bally, they found nothing incriminating against Joseph Moranion and had to drop the charges. So, no heresy here, just good old-fashioned Blood Bowl mayhem. As for the Chain Links, they announced that they had completed their mission and promptly disbanded, leaving their fans completely baffled and wondering if their 7th match will happen. Well, it looks like the Druidic team, Citywood residents, won their match against the We Are the Pirates by walkover. Sad. Sad news indeed. And why, you ask? Apparently, the pirate elves got a bit too enthusiastic about plundering the Citywood forest. Rumor has it they tried to loot a few ancient trees for some magical firewood. Unfortunately for them, the trees fought back. By the time match day rolled around, the elves were found trying to untangle themselves from enchanted vines and were forced to apologize to some very grumpy druids to make it to out of the forest. And so, the druids won by default, all thanks to a few overly ambitious pirates and some very defensive greenery. So what exactly happened in the Reedwood Stadium? Why Raiders suddenly run from the pitch before the match agonist Defiance could even start? Well, after a string of recent losses, the Goblins decided to boost their performance with some magical potions from a rather suspicious supplier. But when they arrived at the stadium and saw all those unicorns and fairies, they were convinced the vendor had sold them some hallucinogenic junk. Furious, they bolted from the stadium to have a little chat with their supplier, leaving the match and their opponents behind. And so, Defiance won by default while the Goblins are off tracking down their shady potion dealer. Conceded! 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 That's the theme of this round for Group A, folks. Not the most glorious showing with only one match actually played. Deadlock Rumblers versus Al Nazar. And I must admit, it was quite the spectacle. At least we get something. In the first seconds, one of the Arabian players broke after a powerful orc hug. Kamir won't be helping his team in round 7, that's for sure. But the half-orcs didn't play flawlessly either, which allowed 2 dervishes to leap onto the ball. And as we all know, once those dancers get their hands on the ball, it's nearly impossible to pry them off. After a lengthy struggle, the Arabs, despite their rapidly dwindling numbers, managed to secure the ball, taking full advantage of the orcs' notorious clumsiness when it comes to dodging. Even the famed toughness of Orcish armor seemed to fail, offering less protection than the cotton robes worn by the warriors of Al Nasser. In the second half, the orcs went all in on even more violence, but Sheikh Kefir, in a daring and swift move, brought the score to 2-0. Pressured, the Rumblers attempted to recreate the Arabian sprint, and to everyone's surprise, including their own, they pulled it off. 15 minutes before the end, the scoreboard showed 2-1, setting up what promised to be a bloody brawl for control. But in a somewhat anticlimactic twist, the Arabs opted for a safer, strategic retreat. As the bloodthirsty orcs pressed deeper into their half, the Arabs lobbed the ball right over their heads. With nothing left to do but maul their laughing opponents, the Rumblers watched in dismay as Brian Irone tried to hurl the ball and sent it flying in the completely wrong direction. And that wraps up this episode! We're heading into the final, thrilling round as teams battle for the best spots in the knockout stage. Stay warm, folks, and we'll see you in about 2 weeks. Bye!